Hi there everybody, this is David, and I have some news about Atlus. It looks like they are finally learning their lesson. It's taken them 20-something years to learn it, but they're finally learning it. And I want to tell you all about what I'm talking about today, and I definitely do think that's worth the sub as you come and you join our party and you level on up with me. Thank you so much for your sub, your like, and your hype. It helps me out a ton. And I do want to all, wish y'all a very happy Thanksgiving as well, and just like a long holiday weekend too. I hope you're really enjoying yourself out there. So, what am I talking about? What lesson am I learning? It looks like Atlus is aware that past definitive version releases could be deterring players from buying their actual games at launch. It says that Sega's full-price games are not selling as much compared to how highly they're rated, and the company cites definitive editions as one of the possible reasons. You think? This is the most obvious thing ever. Anybody with a brain cell in their head could have figured this out. They'd be like, wow, should I buy the first version of the game, or should I wait a year or two and buy the second version of the game? Duh, anybody is going to wait for the second version of the game. They've been doing this for 20 freaking years now. So these financial reports came out, and it says that it was brought up that Sega has released a number of critically acclaimed titles in the past couple of years, but despite the positive reception and high praise for their quality, sales performance always fell short of expectations. And the company also pointed out that players expecting definitive editions of games to be released in the future could be what's making them hesitant to buy the titles at launch. Wow! You can actually put two and two together, Atlus. This is shocking to me. So the first time that I was aware of this phenomenon was the first time that they really did it, and that was whenever Persona 3 came out for the PlayStation 2. I was in college, and I was aware of the Persona series. It was just Persona 1 and 2 that had come out at the time, and the reviews of Persona 1 and 2 were abysmal, to say the least. You read these magazine articles, and they just eviscerated them. They tore them to shreds. I remember one in particular just made me laugh. It was for Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, and it said, at least they got the subtitle right, because this game is nothing but punishment. And I remember thinking, okay, well, Persona 3 is out, it's just going to be more of the same. Why am I going to buy this? 1 and 2 completely sucked. I'm going to wait on this. Then the end of the game year awards came out, and Persona 3 swept it. It swept those awards. Everybody loved Persona 3, so I'm like, wow, okay, maybe I should really look into this series now. And then, not long after at all, less than a year, actually, I looked at the release dates. So, Persona 3, the regular edition, was actually released in July of 2006, and Persona 3 Fez, the updated version, was released in April of 2007. So only 10 months after Persona 3 came out, they came out with their updated version of the game. Then, 2 years later, Persona 3 Portable came out on the PSP. So yeah, they keep on doing all these remakes and remasters, and I know myself, whenever I was looking at those game rewards, I thought to myself, oh, maybe I'll buy Persona 3. But then Persona 3 Fez was announced, so I'm like, I'm not buying Persona 3. I'm waiting for Persona 3 Fez. You know what I'm saying? They did the same thing with Persona 4. Came out in 2008. 4 years later, Persona 4 Golden came out, and I didn't realize this, but in my research, I checked this out. SMT3 Nocturne came out in 2003. Now, we here in the West did not get an updated version, but the Japanese players did. It was called Nocturne Maniacs, and it was released 1 year later in 2004. So the Japanese player base is putting up with this for quite a bit of time. In fact, that's what the players in Japan theorized. They said the definitive edition problem could be linked to the games developed by Atlus. As one of the more recent examples, Shin Megami Tensei 5 was released in late 2021, but then the updated version, Shin Megami 5 Vengeance, launched in mid-2024, less than 3 years later. This seems to be a standard pattern for Atlus's new releases, including the Persona series. So for anybody wondering, well, why aren't you buying Unicorn Overlord? Or why aren't you buying Metaphor? Well, maybe because we're waiting for the Royal Edition, or the Golden Edition, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Or the Reload Edition. So, you can't blame them whenever Atlus has been doing this for upwards of 20 freaking years, more than 20 years apparently, with the Nocturne and the Nocturne Maniacs thing, because that was 2003. So they've been doing this for a long time, and now they're finally, reading the room. They're knowing that, people don't like this. I mean, look what they did during the DS era. That was peak bullshit. During the DS era, they put out Radiant Historia on the DS, 7 years later on the 3DS, perfect chronology. They put out Strange Journey in 2009, then 8 years later, Strange Journey Redux on the 3DS. Etrian Odyssey in 2007, 6 years later, The Millennium Girl in 2013. Etrian Odyssey 2 came out in 2008, then Untold the Fafnir Night came out in 2014, also on the 3DS. Then there was Devil Survivor in 2009, and then only 2 years later, Devil Survivor Overclocked came out in 2011. Like, that is like peak FU by Atlus. It really is. It'd be like, oh, you supported our games over on the DS? Screw you. Support us again. You think that we're actually going to put out, new games on the 3DS? Nope. Can't have that. What if we could just put out these remastered versions, these little extra bonus versions? What do you mean we should do it as DLC? No. We're not going to do it as DLC, even though that technology exists. No, we're going to put it as a full brand new release. Oh, you mean you want an upgrade path? No upgrade path either. You have to buy the full release. They're always doing this, and it's absolute crap. So I am so happy that Atlus is finally reading the room, and they're seeing, hey, maybe we can't keep on doing this, If we want our games to sell, and to sell properly, we need to come out and say, we're not going to be doing this any longer, because this is crazy. Now, I know some people in the comments are going to say, why are you just picking on Atlus? Square Enix is doing the same thing. No, it's different. You cannot compare what Atlus is doing with remakes 1 year or 2 years later as compared to like Dragon Quest 1 and 2 coming out in 1987 and then remaking them in 2025. That is a completely different story. Or Final Fantasy Tactics coming out in 1997 and then like 30 years later putting out a remake. We're not talking about 30 years here. We're talking about the difference of 1, 2, 3 years. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, before with Square Enix, like, a lifetime has passed. Here, a year has passed. It's a completely different thing. Same thing with the collections, like the Lunar collection or the Suikoden collections. Those came out on the PlayStation 1 back in the 90s, and now they're remaking them 25 something years later on the PlayStation 5. You cannot compare that to what Atlus has done. They are the worst about it. And it's not just RPGs either. They did it for Catherine, because Catherine came out in 2011. 8 years later, Catherine Full Body came out. They're doing it to Persona 5. We all know this. Persona 5 came out in 2016. Persona 5 Royal, 2019. They're even doing it to Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which came out in 2015, and then Encore came out in 2020. So again, why would anybody with half a brain pick up one of their new releases whenever they know that they're going to be doing this? But the worst part about this all is that other companies have seen what Atlus is doing, and they're starting to do it too. You know what I'm talking about with Nisa, with these Disgaea re-releases that are coming out, or with Falcom, with the Ys 10 Nordics thing coming out, the Proud Nordics, the Scam Nordics. Like, this is happening, and we need to nip this in the bud. And it looks like Atlus is learning its lesson. They are nipping this in the bud. They are hopefully stopping it. And if we see them stop it, I hope that Nisa will stop it. I hope that Falcom will stop it. And now Gust, with their deluxe editions that have no upgrade paths either for, Ryza, the Ryza Deluxe just came out as well, but there's no upgrade path for anybody who has the original Ryza games. It's such a crummy practice, such a consumer unfriendly practice that Atlus has been doing, but other companies are picking it up. But now they are aware that it's biting them in the ass. So hopefully they will learn this lesson and they will stop doing it. But now I want to hear from y'all. What do you think about this practice? What do you think about what Atlus is doing? How Square is handling their remakes? How Nisa and Falcom and Gust are kind of riding on the coattails of Atlus? What do you think about all this? Let me know in the comments, and have a good Thanksgiving.